Hello and welcome to Whisky Resource. My name is Mark. This is review 109 and today I'll be doing a sample of a Drinks by the Dram sample that I ordered as part of a tasting pack. It was a preset tasting pack of 4 whiskies and this was one of them that was in there. It is a grain whisky, which I've not covered an awful lot of, so it's about time I did a few more. In this case it is the Invergordon 11-year-old 2007 vintage single cask grain Scotch whisky. So there we go. This is a Masters of Malt bottle. It's an exclusive Masters of Malt bottling. And if I can get into the thing, here we go. Let's get this poured and we'll tell you a bit about Invergordon whilst we'll let that breathe a bit. So it's 11-year-old. You can see by the colour. It's natural colour, it's non-chill filtered. Invergordon is owned by Whyte and Mackay up there in the town of Invergordon, which is on the Cromarty Firth. Whyte and Mackay owned by Emperador. This particular whisky, it's out of stock on Masters of Malt right now, but it did retail for £53.95. You can still pick up this pre-packed sample. You make a tasting set, but you can buy this pre-packed sample. It's currently £4.50 for a sample of this 11-year-old grain whisky, bottled at 65.1% ABV. So it is, as far as I'm aware, it's single cask. They don't quote the cask number, however. I'm just going to check the Gordon. Yeah, single cask. So it's single cask, cask strength, grain whisky. As I say, it's natural colour, which is really good to see. So in terms of grain whiskies, other than the Hague single grain whisky that I did as one of my early reviews, I've done a Loch Lomond single grain whisky, and I think, if I'm right in thinking, Baines South African was a grain whisky as well. So I think this may well be maybe the third or the fourth grain whisky that I've tried. So a lot of catching up to do. This is a Highland grain, as I say, owned by Whyte and Mackay. So this will feature in their blended Scotch whiskies. On the nose, what we're getting. It's quite delicate, this one. Wow, it's just got a whiff of singeing alcohol there. 65.1, it's quite strong. Yeah, so that is a nice nose. It's floral. I think the overriding note that's coming from the floral is some creamy vanilla. Spicy. Not only is the alcohol popping out the glass, it's got a spice to it as well. Like yeah, ginger. So this is like a cinnamon vanilla cream that, whilst there's no malt coming off this because it's not a malt whiskey, you can imagine being the topping to a donut or something like that. It's actually very, very nice on the palate. Wow, well, there's quite a bit to say about that. You can tell by my reaction that the alcohol, and I've had stronger alcohol in whiskies before, but the alcohol is an attack dog, a vicious attack dog. Second, I was going to say, the spice is second to the alcohol. The alcohol is just going at it. It's creamy. It's vanilla. A bit of honey going on in there. Spicy. So the alcohol, 65.1%, is going guns at you, like literally attacking every part of your tongue. upper palate, underneath your tongue, your cheeks, going at it, and it's quite eye-watering. But if that wasn't enough, the spice is phenomenal. It's not quite as spicy as the James E.D. Kalila that I reviewed last time. It's not as spicy as that, but it hasn't got water in yet. But the spices are cinnamon and ginger, definitely. It's quite peppery as well as spicy. There's oak, but it's really creamy. The texture is really oily, quite viscous, but creamy, like buttercream. It's got a nice sweetness, but there's also kind of a dank, musty earthiness to it as well, which just adds a bit more of a dimension to it. I'm going to add water into this because it needs it, and it leaves a dry, bitter finish, is what I should say there. Dry, bitter, and the finish. It's as whiskies go, grain whiskies are, they get better as they get older. I think the wood influence has a greater influence over time than it would do for a shorter period. I think it's fair to say grain whiskies aren't impacted in the younger whiskies, where you would see a greater change in a malt than you would a grain. With water, that alcohol is just jumping at me. So it's the same, just a bit more intense now. It's less delicate than it was before. It's still floral, vanilla buttercream, with that lovely sweet cinnamon jumping out at you. It's really quite nice. Now that the water side is starting to work on there, we're getting more oak bitterness, more vanilla, more bourbon influences starting to be imparted into the palate. They don't say the cask, they do, yeah, bourbon cask, February 2007 and March 2018. It's full price, $53.95. I don't know why I haven't actually bought a grain whiskey before now at cask strength. Maybe that's one of the purchases I need to look to do shortly, because it offers something different. It's the closest that I've had in a Scotch whiskey to a bourbon. It doesn't have the colour of a bourbon, but if you were to have this in a blue Glencairn, let's say, Burt's Medley blue Glencairns, I think you could be persuaded with the lack of sight to say that this could have been the bourbon. Maybe not new make, because new make wouldn't have had the oak character, but certainly a youthful bourbon that's recently been put into a new American oak cask that has just had enough influence on the the spirit to impart those bourbon qualities, but not necessarily the age to make it qualify as a bourbon. That's kind of where I think this grain whiskey sits now. It doesn't say what type of grain it could be. This could be corn, which is what would make up a bourbon. 51% corn makes a bourbon, as well as the aging processes. The spiciness would suggest that potentially it could be rye, the grain. But it doesn't have that licorice that you would normally get with a rye. Wheat. I think if it was wheat, they would have said that was wheat. It could also be unmalted barley. But it could be a combination thereof for a mash bill. I'd be interested to know what grain was used in this. Chances are it's an unmalted barley, but it doesn't really give us the sweetness that you'd expect from corn. It's an interesting one. If you know what the grain was, please drop a comment, because I'd like to know. But it's nice. Would I buy a bottle? Well, this one's out of stock, but certainly based on that, yeah, I'd certainly want to try more cask strength grain whiskies, because whilst they at this age don't have the full dimension, expressive, evolving characteristic that you would get in maybe a malt, they certainly have their own presence, and when they're aged to this kind of a quality, definitely I'd buy a bottle. Yeah,